Hello, everyone, and welcome to True Crime, a voice for the voiceless. Hi, I'm Maria. Today, we're going to talk about the Caylee Anthony case, then and now. I decided to cover this case because I realized there's a lot of people that have not heard of it. So let me know in the comments below where you're from and if you've actually heard of this case. Now, let's get to it. Caylee Anthony lived with her parents, Cindy and George Anthony, as well as her brother Lee in Orlando, Florida. Now, Casey was known to be the type of person that would lie just about anything. She also would lie to get out of things. There was one time that Casey let her parents throw her a graduation party. Now, she wasn't going to graduate. She had failed too many classes, and the parents had no idea. They kept asking her when was she graduating, when was the date, because they wanted to go, obviously, but she would never answer the question. So they called the school just to find out that she was not graduating. She also ended up pregnant at one point, and she did not tell them that as well. She would wear baggy clothes, and they noticed she was wearing odd clothes, but they thought maybe she just gained a little bit of weight. But when she was about 7 months pregnant, she was not able to hide it anymore. So she told her father and mother that she was pregnant. Now, she told them that the father of her unborn child was a guy named Jesse Grunn. She had been dating him for a while. Now, Casey had her baby on August 9th of 2005 and named her Caylee Marie Anthony. Now, Jesse Grunn was a doting father. I mean, he loved Caylee. He would spend all kinds of time with both of them. He would take them to do different things. But at some point in time, he decided to get a test done to see if Caylee was actually, his daughter. Unfortunately, the test came back and he was not the father. But he still wanted to be in their life, and he even at one point proposed to Casey. But at some point he started noticing a change in Casey, and things weren't working out for them, so he broke off the engagement. On June 15th of 2008, Caylee Anthony told her mother, Cindy, that she was taking Caylee to her nanny, whom she called Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. And the next day, the three of them were going to drive to Tampa, Florida on a work trip. So on June 16th of 2008, at 12:50 p.m., George, Caylee's grandfather, watched as Casey and 2-year-old Caylee drove away. That was the last time George seen Caylee. Days started to pass, and Cindy wasn't hearing from Casey, so she tried to get a hold of her to see how things were going and how Caylee was. Casey would always have an excuse of why she couldn't come to the phone. She's with the babysitter, she's taking a nap. I mean, it was always something. On June 28th of 2008, Caylee Anthony's car was towed from a parking lot of a check cashing store. Now, apparently, she went there to cash a check and she ran out of gas, so she just left the car there. And then she called her new boyfriend, Tony Lazaro, to come pick her up. Now, during this time, Cindy really missed Caylee and was wanting to know, where is my grandbaby? So she would call and try and get a hold of Casey, but she kept getting the runaround. She wanted to talk to Caylee, but there was always an excuse from Casey. Now, Casey told her mother that they were stuck in Jacksonville, Florida, because her nanny, Zenaida, which she called Zanny, was in a car accident and that they were stuck at the hospital. So George got a message at his door that the car of Casey's had been towed away. At this point, George and Cindy were really pissed off. They're like, why the heck is the car towed at a tow yard? So they went to go pick up the car. George paid the fees, and him and a gentleman walked to go get the car. As they started to approach the car, you could smell a pungent smell. They both kind of looked at each other, and George thought, man, I sure hope it isn't Casey or Caylee. Because then he was thinking that I haven't heard from them in a long time. It's been almost a month. So he opened up the door and a huge, horrible smell came out. So he literally takes the car and he drives it home. When he got home, he put the car into the driveway and backed it up into the garage. And his wife, Cindy, they opened up the trunk and its smell was even worse. There was a bag of trash and there was a pizza box with maggots on it inside the trunk. So Cindy threw the stuff away and then she started spraying everything with Febreze and he opened the windows up and they were airing it all out. Now this part really is crazy to me because if my daughter left with my granddaughter, and keep in mind that Caylee has never been gone that long, so Casey would maybe take her somewhere for a day, but she never took the baby, somewhere for more than a day. So this is a long time. This is like almost a month now. But if I had my daughter and she took my granddaughter and she said she was, going on a trip and then I can't get a hold of her, I can't get a hold of her. And then when I do talk to her, she gives me all kinds of excuses. And then all of a sudden I find out her car's been towed and we go pick up her car and the car smells like an unalive body. I'm not going to drive my car home and put it in the garage and spray it with Febreze. That's not something I would do. I would have called the police. I don't understand what they were thinking because he's a retired police officer and she's a nurse. So this doesn't make any sense to me. But that's not what they did. They took the car, put it in the garage, and tried to air it out and spray Febreze. So it makes no sense to me. Anyway, so Cindy tried to get a hold of Casey, but she was unable to get a hold of her. So she found out from one of Casey's friends that Casey was not in Jacksonville. She had been staying with her new boyfriend, Tony Lazzaro. So Cindy talked to her friend and told her friend what was going on, how she couldn't get a hold of her, and all the different things that Casey was telling her. So she convinced her friend to go with her and show her where this Tony Lazzaro lived. So she gets to the home and she pretty much pushed her way through the door. And Casey was mortified. She was mortified. She was not happy about it because it's like, why are you at my boyfriend's house? And Cindy's like, where is Caylee? So of course Casey lies again and says she's, with the nanny, Zanny the nanny, which is what she called her. So Cindy wasn't having it. That's it. I'm not taking this from you anymore. And she made her go home with her. On the way home, driving, she was trying and trying to get Casey to tell her where Caylee was. She's like, fine, let me go get her. Where does she live? Let me go get her. Casey's like, no, let's just do it tomorrow because, I don't really want to bother Caylee. She's probably sleeping. It's late. And, Cindy just was not having it, was not having it. So as they're heading back to Cindy's home, she decides to call 911 and she tells the 911 operator that she has someone with her that she needs to bring to the police station for theft and stealing money. They asked her, well, who is it? And she told her it was her daughter. The police informed her, after asking what her address was, that she needed to contact the Orange County Sheriff Department because that's because of where they lived, the location of their home. So they said, well, we can send someone to your home. So they went ahead and drove home. Cindy went and drove home. And this whole time she's still arguing with Casey. And they get home and she's there waiting for the police officers to show up. Well, at this point, Cindy is like a wreck. She's just a wreck. Where the heck is my grandbaby? She's a wreck. Casey's telling her all these crazy things. She's pacing back and forth in the house. And so she, tells her son to go talk to Casey. So they actually are in Casey's room. And he's trying to, ask her what's going on. And, you need to tell her what's going on. We're going to figure it out eventually, that kind of thing. Where's Caylee, And she tells her brother that Caylee was taken by the nanny. by Zanny the nanny, and she will not give her back. And that she's been missing for 31 days, and she's been trying to find her, but she hasn't had any luck. Well, Cindy overheard this and she freaked out. She freaked out and she grabs her phone and calls 911 again. And she's saying, I called you guys and, I'm waiting for them to show up. But I just found out that my granddaughter has been taken by the babysitter. I need to find her. There's something wrong here. I found my daughter's car today and it smells like there's been an unalive body in it. And she's very hysterical. And so she's talking to this 911 operator and she's like, well, is your daughter there? And she tells her, let me talk to your daughter. And so you can overhear it and you can hear Casey's pretty much saying she didn't want to talk to the 911 operator. But her mom's like, insistent, and she hands her the phone. So she gets on the phone. She starts to talk to the 911 operator, and her demeanor was disgusting. I literally watched the whole trial. I remember watching this back when it happened, and it was outrageous. I mean, her demeanor was like she was irritated. She didn't really want to be talking to the police, and she's like, well, my daughter's missing. She's been missing for 31 days, and I've been trying to go through different resources to try and find her, but that was really stupid. And I mean, she's just like irritated. So the investigators show up to the home, and Casey tells them that the last time she's seen Caylee was at the Sawgrass Apartments where she dropped her off. And that when she went back to pick her up, that nobody was there, that she called the phone and nobody was answering. So as the investigators spoke with her, they decided to take her to the apartment. So they go to the apartment and they get there and they knock on the door and they realize it looks like there's nobody there. So they go ahead and go to the managers and they ask the management, okay, who lives here? Who are the people that live here? And so they informed the investigator that nobody's lived there in that apartment since February 2008, that they actually got evicted back then. Casey told them that she worked at Universal Studios and that she had been looking for Caylee there. So the investigators took her to Universal Studios. When they arrived there, she took them to the entrance, the employee entrance, and she was unable to get in. But someone came over and they let her go in. So she sits there and she walks and she goes to these office buildings and she starts waving at people and saying hi to people. And she's acting like, she knows them. And they kind of, it was obvious they're like looking at her like, okay, who are you? So eventually she goes into this building and she starts walking through the hallways. She's walking through and she's walking through this. It was almost like a maze. She's walking through these hallways. All of a sudden she gets to kind of like a dead end. She stops, puts her hands in her back pockets, turns and looks at them and says, I don't actually work here. Oh, what a surprise. She doesn't work there. Oh, what a surprise. Another lie. So the funny thing is that the investigators knew she didn't work there. They had already did their investigations and they found out she did not work there. She worked there a long, long time before, hadn't worked there for years. So they took her into a room and they started to do an interview with her. She continued to stick to the story that the nanny took Caylee. The investigators did a huge investigation on if there was even really a Zanny, the nanny, which Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, which was the name that she said was the nanny's. So at this point, this case was all over the news. I mean, everyone knew about this case. Everyone was out looking for Caylee. Everyone was out looking for Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, Zanny the nanny. But while they were all investigating, they realized that every single thing that Casey told them was a big fat lie. So Casey was arrested for lying to the police. You could not turn on the TV and not see something about this case, about Caylee being missing. They started seeing that during the time that Caylee was missing, Casey was out partying. She was shopping. She was living it up and living like the single life. She was posting pictures on her MySpace because back then they had MySpace. It showed pictures of her partying and just having all kinds of fun. She went from one place to another, following her new DJ boyfriend, Tony Lazaro. And of course, Caylee was nowhere to be found. She even got a tattoo that said Bella Vita, which is in Italian, beautiful life. So while Casey was in jail, there were some videos that came out on the news, and it showed Casey talking with her parents. It really showed that she did not give a crap about where her daughter was. She was so horrifying to her parents. She just wanted to know what her boyfriend's phone number was, that she wanted to talk to her boyfriend, Tony Lazaro. She didn't really want to talk about the fact that the baby was missing. And it was actually sickening to watch. It just, I don't understand. Honestly, I don't understand her parents at all. I really don't, especially her mother. Cindy told her that people were saying that Caylee was unalive, and Casey just rolled her eyes and said, "Surprise, surprise." At that point, her mother asked her what was her gut feeling about Caylee. Casey says to her, "I believe she's not far." People were outraged when they seen the demeanor of her on these videos. How callous she was about her baby missing and all the evidence of all the stuff she was doing while the baby was missing for all that time. It was 31 days. Now, like I said, this case was huge. It was on TV every single day. Nancy Grace, every single news station. And it was funny because Nancy Grace called her top mom. She did not like Casey. She was just outraged. Now, on June 16th of 2008, no one saw Caylee after that. The investigation showed that Caylee Anthony left the home with Caylee at 12:50 p.m. on June 16th of 2008. And that was the last day that George Anthony watched them drive away, and that was the last day he seen her. Now, at 4 p.m., Casey's phone records show she remained in the area, and then that night it showed at 7:54 p.m. Casey was seen at Blockbuster Video with her new boyfriend, Tony Lazaro, and Caylee was not with her. There was never any evidence of Zanny the nanny even existing. Now, Brian Berner, a neighbor of Anthony's home, stated on June 16th, which that's the day that she drove off with Caylee, he's seen Casey's car backed up in their garage. He also stated on June 18th, which was 2 days later, Casey went to his home and asked him to borrow a shovel. He said she stated she needed the shovel to dig up some bamboo root. He said she only had the shovel for about an hour and then she returned it to him. Now, while Caylee was missing, her grandfather George had signs put up on his car. He wore T-shirts. He had pictures everywhere. Him and his wife were on TV as much as possible because they wanted to get her name and photos out there. I think they even talked to Nancy Grace. I'm not positive about that. Now, people flocked in front of her house, across the street. I mean, the whole neighborhood had all kinds of media and people with signs. People were totally outraged because she got out on bail when she was home, and they were holding signs. They were calling her a baby K-er. There was numerous fights in front of the home, altercations with George and different people. And it was even seen on TV that George was putting up a sign that said no trespassing. The story was huge, and you could see the devastation in George's face as he talked. I mean, he was a broken man and he just wanted to find his grandbaby. But Cindy was a different story. Don't get me wrong. I know she was devastated and I know she wanted to find her grandbaby, but she was totally doing things to protect Casey. Now, this is all my opinion of Cindy Anthony, but this is just how I felt watching the TV, watching everything, watching the trial. Now, I remember watching all this unfold on TV. and it was heartbreaking. It was really hard to watch. I mean, like, where's this beautiful little baby? Where is she? And why does her mom not care? And why is she out partying and dancing and lying and all the things, Well, on December 11th of 2008, a meter reader named Roy Kronk found what he thought may be a skull. Now, he poked at it with a stick or something, and then he called the authorities. Now, the frustrating thing about this was he actually called the authorities like 3 times. The first 2 times, nothing was done. And at this time, they had this huge storm, and so the area was flooded for months. Now, he ended up calling a 3rd time, but this time he stayed there so that he waited there for them to show up, and then he showed them where he had found what he thought was a skull. The skull remains ended up being Caylee Anthony. They were in the woods not far from Anthony's home. Now, the medical examiner, Dr. G, she ruled it a homicide. We will get more into the evidence as we talk about the trial. But now, on October 14th of 2008, Casey was indicted for first-degree M, aggravated child A, and aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. Now, I have to use these odd words because YouTube is very particular and I don't want them to take off my videos, so I hope you understand. Now, when Casey was in jail, someone told her about a lawyer that they said he was really good, and his name was Jose Baez. Now, at this time, he was not very well known, and a lot of people wondered if this Jose Baez would be able to handle such a big case. I will say the media and, of course, Nancy Grace felt there was overwhelming evidence against Casey. When the trial started, it was crazy. It was like the OJ trial where there was people everywhere. They were all standing outside of the courtrooms because they wanted to be able to know what was going on. There was lines waiting to get into the courtroom. They only had a certain amount of seats. People were out there fighting for tickets. I mean, it was like a madhouse. It was crazy. And people just really want to know where this baby was. Okay. The trial started May 24th of 2011. Now, that was 3 years after the disappearance of Caylee Marie Anthony. The prosecutor, Linda Burdick and Jeff Ashton, alleged that Casey used chloroform and duct tape to suffocate Caylee. They said she was motivated by the desire to be free, that Casey no longer wanted to be responsible for a child. They presented evidence of internet searches for the terms chloroform and neck breaking on the Anthony family computer. That evidence showed that no one else was home at the time. They had cell phone records showing her locations. They also had the neighbors stating that she borrowed the shovel. They had evidence of a hair strand found in the trunk of Casey's car. It was microscopically similar to Caylee's hair and exhibited a root banding associated with decomposition. The hair was longer than Casey's, and the hair was untreated, unlike Casey and Cindy's hair. The detectives detected a strong odor in the trunk of Casey's car of human decomposition. A cadaver dog alerted the presence of human decomposition in both the trunk of Casey's car and the Anthony family backyard. When they found Caylee's remains, the skull had duct tape wrapped around the mouth and nose with a heart-shaped sticker residue on it, and a hair was stuck to it. Nearby was a bag with the rest of the bones, and a baby blanket with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet on it in a laundry bag. A laundry bag matched the bag from the Anthony's home. It was a set of 2. Also, Caylee's bedroom had a theme of Winnie the Pooh, and it totally matched the blanket. I'll never forget when the medical examiner came out and talked about the remains, and she explained that the duct tape was wrapped around her little nose and mouth, and hair was stuck to it, and it was holding the bottom jaw to the skull. It was horrifying. I'll never forget it. It was a hard trial to watch, and it was just hard to watch. Now, the defense, Jose Baez, crafted a controversial and aggressive defense. He shifted focus away from Casey and onto other theories. Now, when Jose Baez spoke, he was very animated. He was very animated. He started off by saying Caylee was never missing. She died accidentally in the family pool. He stated Casey and George split up to find Caylee, and George found her floating in the pool. He came around the corner holding Caylee and blamed Casey and told her, "Your mother will never forgive you, and you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life." Then he stated Casey was being abused since the age of 8 by her father, George Anthony. He went into graphic detail, and he stated that Casey did lie about Caylee being missing. He said she was raised to lie, and it was because of the dysfunctional family that she was in. Now, before the trial started, the judge told George and Cindy Anthony that they could sit in the courtroom, which is usually unheard of because they're going to be on the stand. But he said that they could be in the courtroom, but they could not show any emotions. So when Jose Bai was saying all these things, I can't imagine George just sitting there and trying not to have an emotion. I don't know how he did it. I remember watching the trial and I remember thinking that this is craziness, and it made me sick. And another thing that bothered me about the trial was Casey would sit there and she'd shake her head. She kept like shaking her head no when they would say things like, how she was missing for 31 days and the different things that she did that, her line and everything. She would sit there and shake her head no, and it drove me nuts. So watching the trial was very intense. When I heard all the things that he was saying, I was like shocked. And it was all over the media. This was like unheard of for a lawyer to do what he did. Now, during the trial, the defense stated that it was an accidental drowning in the family pool. They challenged the reliability of the forensic evidence, especially the root banding of the hair that they found in the trunk of Casey's car. They had allegations against George Anthony stating that he abused Casey, which he denied when he went on the stand. They even disputed the evidence of the chloroform searches on the computer, and I found that crazy. I really did. And then another thing that was even more crazy to me was they stated that the duct tape's placement was inconsistent with a homicide and could not have been placed there before postmortem. It's like, are you serious right now? Are you really going to say that? Now, when Cindy Anthony was on the stand, she changed her story and she stated that the trunk smelled that way because of the rotten pizza. That really upset me. And I think it has upset a lot of people because everybody in the whole world seen on national TV heard the 911 call of her stating that the car smelled like an unalive body it has been in it. She also stated when she was on the stand that she did the internet searches for chlorophyll and that chloroform popped up and she clicked on it, which I find funny because in the trial it showed that it was looked at more than once, and it also showed that she was not home, she was at work. And so was George. The only one that was home was Casey. And it was done more than once, and every time the parents were at work and Casey was home. It was brutal watching George Anthony on the stand. He was a broken man. He was devastated and he wanted his grandbaby to be found so bad. And when he found that she was unalive, it was horrific. All the people that Casey hung out with that were called to the stand stated that they never seen Caylee after the 16th of June. They stated that Casey was acting totally normal, like everything was fine. She never acted like her daughter was missing or there was even a problem. She always had some place that Casey was. That with the babysitter at the beach, she always had something. This case was huge. It was a lot like the O.J. Simpson trial, like I mentioned before, in regards to all the media attention and how there were crowds of people outside the courthouse because they wanted to hear the verdict. Now, on June 5th of 2011, after 10 hours and 40 minutes over a course of 2 days, they reached a verdict. Everybody was on their seats, and I was extremely nervous watching this. I mean, I think you could probably hear a pin drop when they were going to announce what the verdict was. Caylee Anthony was acquitted on the most serious charges, but found guilty on 4 counts of providing false information to law enforcement regarding the unaliving of Caylee. Everyone was in shock. I was in shock. I was pissed. I'm not going to lie. I started to cry because I couldn't believe what just happened. And most of the people that were outside the courthouse, they were in shock as well. I will not say everyone was shocked. And there were people that were happy with the verdict. But I am definitely not one of them. Caylee was released with time served. And she was able to go home that night. Now, if you've never heard of this case, now understand why so many people were outraged with the things that Caylee is doing since the acquittal. And they feel that Caylee did not get justice for losing her life. So now we will discuss what has been going on and what has happened with Caylee since her acquittal. Hold on a minute. No one really heard much of Caylee after she was acquitted. Apparently, she lived in South Florida with Patrick McKinney, a lead investigator that was on her defense team. She also worked for him. But on March 7th of 2017, Caylee Anthony did her first media interview, speaking with the Associated Press. She talked about being aware of all the negative opinions about her, and she said that she didn't give a crap what people think of her, which I personally call BS. She also stated she really doesn't know what happened to Caylee, that she has lapses in memory, which again, I call BS. On November 29th of 2020, Caylee was in a Peacock docuseries called Caylee Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. The lies part sounds about right to me. Caylee now alleges her father, George Anthony, not only abused her as a child, she now alleges George was responsible for the unaliving of Caylee. She also made a statement in regards to lying, saying everyone lies. People lie to the police all the time. There's a lot more said and done in this docuseries, but I'm not here to promote her. Not at all. Now, on March 1st of 2025, which is not that long ago, Caylee came out on TikTok. She expressed the desire to reintroduce herself to the public and mentioned advocating for others. She did mention Caylee, but quite frankly, that actually pissed me off. In my opinion, I don't want to hear her say Caylee's name at all. She also encouraged people to reach out to her if they were encountering legal challenges. So there you have it. Caylee Anthony, then and now. Please let me know in the comments below what you think about Caylee Anthony trying to get followers and trying to be advocates for others. Do you think Caylee received justice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching True Crime Voice for the Voiceless. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.